All right. Well. Let's see if we can get some folks here on this very much short notice impromptu live stream. How are we going to do that? Do, 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 do. Let's go over here and let's go over here. And now the question is, how do I get this over? If anyone's watching, I am sure this is terribly boring. There we go. Get shareable link. Aha! Okay, we're in business. Send it. Okay, let's check the chat. We've got someone in the chat, Slowpoke74 with the S as a 5. I like that. I think that is cool. Let me know if you can hear me. Still figuring out how OBS works, going live and stuff. So if you can hear me, let me know. If you cannot hear me, I don't know how you would let me know. Let's see. Let's do this. Stop. Bam. Let's go. Bam. Who else can we go to, guys? Check on Slowpoke. Can totally hear you. Oh, we got Sasha is good. Hear you well. Oh, you guys, thank you. Bear with me, and we'll get this thing started. I just totally impromptu live stream here. I'm sending out some notifications in all of my little places, so it is. And I apologize. I'm noticing now my voice is a little raspy. Maybe it's from wrangling kids all day long. I don't know. Probably. I tried to convince Mrs. Retro to join me for this live stream. I almost had her, you guys, but she got a little shy. So we'll have to, if that would be something of interest to you, let me know in the chat so that I can have some evidence. Like, yeah, they wanna meet you too. Okay, let's see. Go over here. Oh my gosh, Slowpoke, you are right. The Super Bowl. Okay, while I'm sending out these these notices, I grew up playing sports. So in high school, I did track and field, and I did football. Did quite well in both of those for the small school that I went to, and then in college, I played rugby. And I've always enjoyed playing sports, but for the life of me, I just cannot get into following sports, watching sports. I don't know. I don't know what it is that it just doesn't. It just doesn't click for me the way that it does. I know a lot of people. So yeah, totally forgot that, and I knew it too. Earlier today, I saw some stuff all over the place, like, oh yeah, the Super Bowl's today, and then I just completely forgot it. So I'm glad that it is over. So hopefully we can grab some people. Okay, let's see. Where? Okay, let's do it right here, and then let's do it over here, and then let's do it over here. Bear with me, guys. Let's do this one. This one. Let's do this one. I promise we are just about to get into things. Okay. Well, we'll call that good. Okay, so my friends, we are gathered here this evening to talk about retro tech. So I thought it might be kind of interesting to give you all a little bit of a backstory. I may have done this in a live before. Pardon me. But I am in my 30s, which means I am a millennial, which means I am one of those had it both ways in terms of technology. So my entire childhood was pretty much like analog tech. So cell phones were around, but you really only had kind of wealthier people that had them. At least ones, car phones, I guess, had been around for even longer than that. But, and I'm not talking, I mean, the massive Motorola that's really famous from all of the movies from like the 80s and 90s. Those were, but I'm talking more of like the modern, like you could fit it in your pocket. The battery would last you, probably as long as you would need it to without needing to charge it. So that all existed. But on some of the other sides of things like high-speed internet was still not really a thing, at least broadly speaking. When I was growing up, everyone that did have internet had dial-up for the most part. Let's see, gaming. I mean, online gaming was kind of a thing, but it was so limited. Like at the time, I think it was really. I know the Dreamcast, the Sega Dreamcast, had some online functionality. I believe it was the late '90s. But yeah, this was my childhood, I should say, was before PlayStation Network, Xbox Live. BattleNet, I guess, was kind of there in the in between. So like my late, maybe my preteen part of my life, BattleNet, Blizzard with the likes of Diablo 2 and those things were around. But it was all very much it was I was talking to someone the other day. This was when these types of things, like the cell phone, the soon to emerge smartphone, social networks. I mean, before the social networks, we had the likes of instant messengers. I can still remember Yahoo Messenger, MSN Messenger, and there were a number of other ones that I never used that I can't off the top of my head remember the names of. But these were kind of like the precursors leading into social networks, which were themselves precursors leading into social media. Where I'm going with this is it was all really cool when it was sort of a novelty, where it was sort of an additional thing to your day-to-day life. Most people still spent most of their time offline. It was very much I like an analog world. It was a touch and feel world. Everything was a lot more real, and the products kind of reflected that. I mean, even the gaming, what now I consider vintage gaming, like you can see my man Jaws over here for the NES. The games of the time were designed just so differently. They weren't necessarily designed bearing any resemblance to the way that they are designed today. And then there was the big shift that happened right around the time I was about to finish high school. Social networks turned into social media. The iPhone, for example, the first iPhone came out. Android was just around the corner. This was where so in the smartphone, like Blackberries had kind of been around a little bit, but they weren't really designed to be media consumption devices. They were designed to be productivity tools, communication powerhouses. They were really the first mainstream device. I don't know if they were the first device, period, but the first mainstream device that gave you your enterprise email on the go. You were no longer tied to your desk or your computer in order to get work done. And then of course the trickle down like that went to the broader consumer base shortly thereafter. But again, it was designed, that was I would call it a smartphone, but it wasn't designed as a media consumption device at that time, which the iPhone and then all of the Android devices very much were. So right in this time, this 2000, so I would put the window like 2007 to 2009 when we had a shift, the great shift. Oh, gaming, for example, too. This was when the likes of Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, and PC online gaming shot through the roof with the advent of all kinds of new operating systems, technologies, and the hardware to power them. So the dial-up days were very quickly gone, and obviously there's going to be trade-offs. There's pros and cons to all of the new inventions that come this way. But up until this point, and even maybe a little bit further into it, I would say maybe as far into it as like 2000, for me personally speaking. I mean, let me know in the chat if it was different for you guys. For me personally speaking, all of this stuff was, to use a video game analogy, it was all side quests. It was all novel add-ons. They weren't the main thing that society was focused on or built around. They were kind of these little bonuses that we all got to enjoy if we wanted to, but they weren't necessary. And that, I think, is a key factor there. Fast forward to today, and it feels kind of like the side quest has become the main story. These things that used to be nice little bonuses, little add-ons to our day-to-day life, have sort of seen our day-to-day life, or at least the broader culture or the technosphere or the infrastructure, the social infrastructure as well, are now built around these things, as opposed to them being bonuses on top of what was there. So this is sort of where I kind of find myself. Fast forward several years, and one night I'm up and in my room, and I remembered something that I needed to do. So I grabbed my phone, pulled it out of my pocket, and instead of doing that thing, I want to say it was an email to respond to or something I needed to order for the kids or something like that. Instead of doing any of those things, I did what I had muscle memory, compulsive habit programmed myself to do, and I just got on Instagram and started scrolling. Completely forgot what I had even grabbed my phone to do. And my friends, this was like an out of body experience for me. Like it all of a sudden hit me in like a wave, where it was like, dude, you just grabbed your phone to do something important, and now you don't even remember what it was. And I thought, if it is this bad for someone like me, a 30-something-year-old millennial who came from the life before, that world that I grew up in, and really my formative years. I mean, I was how old was I when the first iPhone came out and all of this big shift happened? I want to say I was 19, 18 or 19 when iPhone 1 came out. If it's this bad for me, then what hope do the generations that came up after, that never knew it the way it was before, or my own kids? Now, granted, obviously, I can use these lessons to help my kids, learn and grow and develop in a way that will benefit them. But in any case, that is really kind of the long-winded origin story to returning retro. I just thought to myself, in that very instance when Instagram had sucked me in, I thought, man, what if there was a way that we could in some ways just go back a little bit, but not for the sake of nostalgia. This is where I think a number of people, again, this is, not telling anyone how to live their life or anything, but this is where a number of places that I found kind of got it wrong for me, or what I was looking for is, I love nostalgia. I mean, guys, look at my wall behind me. Like, so much of this stuff is not, it's the actual stuff that I had growing up. Some of it's not. So like, let's see, where point. The Game Gear, my actual Game Gear. The Sony, it's the same model, but it's not the same one that I had growing up. So it's a little bit of a mix of all of them. Like, nostalgia is great, but I do think that there is something deeper that happened. I think that some of the forms of technology, or the ways that we interacted with technology, we didn't prematurely abandon, we erroneously abandoned. Some of this is, buttons on phones, that tactile feel, the satisfaction. And, as I've dived more and more into 8, through 64-bit gaming, whether it's retro gaming or vintage gaming, which, believe me, there's a difference, and we'll talk about it here in a minute. Some of these things I just don't think we should have moved on from. I mean, I'm not saying we should have stopped developing. Like, I'm not begrudging the fact that we have these gorgeous new AAA games, most of which I just don't enjoy for one reason or another. But there are some that are great, and I know that a lot of people do enjoy the ones that I don't necessarily enjoy. I just don't think we should have abandoned it. I think that there is something to be said about the experience, the 8 through 64-bit experience, similar to that experience with buttons on phones, small phones, what have you. And so returning retro, the reason I called it that is because I want to turn back the clock, not necessarily, but rather do more of a course correction, I think is the best example of what I would call it, to where we bring back some of those things that we moved on from, not by resurrecting the actual old devices. I mean, I have here next to me, like, I've got my BlackBerry Key 2. This is this is vintage tech. It's the actual old unmodified tech. So returning retro is what I went with instead of returning vintage or going back or whatever, is because I think that there doesn't need to be an old meets new aspect, which is what retro is. So to contrast to that, the Zenwa Q25, I think, is a really cool example of something that was the actual old. You've got vintage mixed with something new because of the internals and stuff, for those of you that are familiar with this device. And then there are also other aspects like the Clicks keyboard case. This is just pure golden retro hardware, where it takes something from the past, iterates on it, improves on it in some ways, and is a new production thing here in the present. So put a pin in it right there. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the differences between vintage and retro, because this is another thing that I find a lot of people, through no fault of their own maybe, kind of get wrong. But let's jump in the chat here real quick and see. Guys, I apologize. We're getting the years are getting me. Okay, Super Bowl. Yep. Looking forward to getting my Click communicator. Who isn't, my friend? So let's see. Tamil Real Tortka. Sorry, I'm butchering that name right there. Did you order one? I'd love to know if you ordered one. And when they do give you the color selection, which one you're gonna go with? For me, I'm going Gatorade. At first, I was thinking I would do smoke. I would do the Stormtrooper, where you'd have, the white with the black keys and then maybe a black back. I call that the Stormtrooper theme, and I really liked it. But then down at CES, Kevin showed me what he called the Gatorade theme, where you have the clover, the dark, like almost the olive drab green with the orange back. And I just, even hearing me say that, it sounds ridiculous, but seeing it in person, it was beautiful. So I think that's what I'm going to go with for my first one. But yeah, let me know. I'm curious which color you're most looking forward to. Victor Garcia, totally agree. Goal is for this year is to decentralize my phone so it's 100% a work tool. Love it. I think that, and this is something too where, for those of you that are new, welcome. For those of you that have been around a while, I dabbled in the digital minimalism scene for a little while. I just didn't find it met my needs. Minimally engaging with tech for the sake of minimally engaging with tech it doesn't fit my needs very well. And I find, and this is why I use the term intentional tech. So it could be vintage tech, it could be retro tech, it could be any number of things that you make the intentional decision to use in a certain way, as opposed to just the mainstream catch-all, brain rot devices. And so decentralization, as Victor here talks about, I think is a really good approach for some people to take the let's see, where do I have it charging up on the charger. So basically to take their glass slab and blow that up into, however many different devices to serve all of the different functions that one device can do, can help you be a lot more deliberate and intentional about how you use technology. And I think is a great way to do it. For other people, that's not necessarily the best approach. And so I think I just think it's great that we in 2026 have options that we can explore, whatever directions we want to go with it. So yes, I think and stop by, I'd love to hear how your progress goes on that. And that reminds me of another thing, returning retro. The reason I started the channel and the Reddit page, and then the different socials that I've done along with it, basically just to promote them, is I wanted to create a resource. I don't know, maybe a community. I feel like that word is becoming a little bit cliched. Maybe not. I don't know. But I wanted to start something where people could have resources that I didn't have when I started my intentional tech transformation. And so I want to bring everyone together that is wanting to be more deliberate and intentional and talk about the devices or the software that could help you along that way. And so yeah, so this is something too that I want this to be to hear about everyone else's progress, to hear what has worked for you guys that maybe I can incorporate into my own change up, because I'm certainly not perfect, especially trying to do a YouTube channel while trying to be an intentional tech guy. It isn't easy, but yeah, let me know how that goes. James Jackson. Okay, I love my Light Phone 3, and before that, my Light Phone 2. Been 7 years, smartphone free, and never going back to a smartphone. I wish I had this pre-programmed. I do one of those, yay, animations. But James, I think that is awesome. I've tried a little bit with the Light Phone 3. I think even though it's AOSP based and whatnot, it is designed in a way to be a software induced dumb phone, which I think are great and really, really good for a lot of people. I haven't gotten there yet. I don't know if I ever will. Longer term, I would like to be able to just have all of my needs met basically the same way that they were with my slide up Samsung from high school. But I'm not there yet. So I think that's awesome. That Light phone. I have nothing but admiration for Light, the company. I think what they're doing is awesome, and they're definitely sort of a standard bearer in the call it what I call the broad intentional tech umbrella under which digital minimalism, dumb phones, those are definitely pillars underneath that umbrella. I think that it's awesome. I briefly was able to try out the Light Phone 3 at the Bring Back BlackBerry event that I attended in Brooklyn this last summer. And it felt great, and it was really cool. I didn't get to play with the software very much, and there were a lot of people there, but I think that's awesome for you. Slowpoke, T-Mobile is the only service my Key 2 works on. Interesting. I hadn't really thought of that, because I use a T-Mobile network operator, so I wouldn't have thought to try it anywhere else. But yeah, I do know, and this is something too where this brings up a good point, Slowpoke. I don't know if in the case of the network shutdowns, it was planned obsolescence per se, even though it's pretty obvious that this happens in tech, where companies will bake in a premature obsolescence in order to keep launching new devices, keep those revenue streams coming. But this is one of the reasons why I personally tend to gravitate more towards retro tech, being new production technology that has aspects from tech trends or tech aspects that are from the past that aren't really common anymore, as opposed to vintage tech, because some of the vintage tech just doesn't work anymore. I would love, one of my favorite devices was the Pearl, the BlackBerry Pearl 9100, as well as the Bold 9900. And in the US at least, they can't work anymore. Even on Wi-Fi, they're so restricted to what you can do. They're just very pretty. They maybe will go up on my wall one of these days, unless Zinwa does a resto mod treatment for those as well. But yes, this is why vintage tech can be tough. And then the other side of that too, with your vintage hardware specifically, is I don't really want to be using it a ton, because some of this stuff is decades old. You never know how much longer it's going to last if you're using it regularly. So this is another reason why retro tech I think is really nice, because you can enjoy some of those same things from yesteryear, but not necessarily also degrading the vintage tech, if it even still works, as we discussed. James, I looked at the Clicks, but it's just a physical keyboard smartphone. It's a modern smartphone with Android 16 and all the millions of Play Store apps to choose from. You are right. Slow physical keyboard. Okay, thanks. Yep, it's hard and every time it's trouble, but determined to keep my smartphone free life. Yeah, so I think that's one where this is a great example here, right in the chat, my friends, of different people have different needs that are going to be met by different products. James, you make a good point in that the communicator, as well as any of the current production keyboard devices, though there are some upcoming that I think will change this a little bit. With one notable exception is, James, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but maybe not, Keyphone. So Keyphone, they have very deliberately created the build of Android on this to make it so that you can't do anything other than, you know, basically the dumb phone stuff that we all had back in the 2000s. So on this guy right here, I don't know if it's got any. I think it's dead. So they do have different modules. You can either do the full QWERTY, you can do a T9, which I don't have currently, and then they are coming up with one that has like more of a monolithic screen, and then maybe just a couple of command buttons at the bottom. But this is basically calling, texting, calendar, calculator, notepad, music player, but not like a streaming music player. Like you'd have to put your own music files on it. Photo camera, but it does not record video. Headphone jack, programmable buttons. It's got a removable battery right there. You can just pop it right out. Let's see, you want to make sure I do it right. So yeah, it's that easy to do. And yeah, this can only do, I think it's probably a little bit more functional in terms of what the software will allow than the light phone. But it is, I mean, it is not, it is very, very much a locked down software induced dumb phone, if that makes sense. So that might be something that you're interested in looking to. The keyboard, I mean, this is a pretty small device. Like I can show you guys here next to the Key 2. The Key phone is it's got a tiny little keyboard. You do kind of get used to it, and I've got pretty big. I mean, I grew up on a farm. I've got like rancher fingers, and I got used to the keyboard, after using it for a couple of days. But again, it is very much a dumb phone, a software induced dumb phone experience as opposed to some of the others. But where I was going with that is a lot of these keyboard devices that are coming out, they are basically running Android, with some customizations or others that are going to be a very open experience. Now, I will say this. This has been the case with me using both the Zinwa Q25, to an extent the minimal phone as well, even though the screen of the minimal phone is quite a bit larger than that of the Classic or the Q25. A smaller screen with a 9:16 aspect ratio just makes it so that you're less inclined to doom scroll or spend a ton of time on your phone. Everything renders a little bit janky, and so I just find myself not as inclined. But at the same time, if I do need something, like if I need to send an email or even you throw Teams or Outlook or whatever on here, I can do it. And so again, this for me is that really, really nice middle ground that I call the intentional tech area, as opposed to the very strict dumb phone or digital minimalism area, which is, I mean, for some people that works and that's great, going all that way. For me and countless others, it's not. And so something like light, it just doesn't work for me in my current in my current chapter of my quest. So okay, let's see. So removable battery is cool, just like 3 has. Keyphone does look amazing. Yeah, James, I recommend checking it out. They've just started, so they did a crowdfund. I can't remember if it was Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and I think that in the last month or so they've shifted over to like full retail sales. It's not cheap. I know some people have complained, why is it so much? Well, my friends, that's kind of how manufacturing works. When you have a very small batch with very, very specific hardware requirements, the cost for them to have this phone made is higher. And so in order for them to run a business, they have to increase the price proportionally. And hopefully as more people adopt it, it will come down. For those of you that don't know this, and maybe you do, and so I apologize if this is preaching to the choir here, but I, about a year ago, was involved with a project where we were, hey, let's make a physical keyboard phone. Let's do a QWERTY phone. This was, at the time, the only one that I had known about was the minimal phone. I hadn't known about any of the other ones that were upcoming. And so I did a number of different types of groundwork to try and look into what it would take to create a physical keyboard phone. My friends, people have no idea the costs associated with manufacturing devices like this. It is insanely expensive to go out and have them do something like this. You pretty much have to find components that are already existing in the supply chain, and then find someone that will give you a relatively small minimum order quantity, and then do that with all the different components, screen, speaker, whatever, and bring it all together in a way that I don't know. People, whenever I see, it's like, okay, yes, the more expensive a thing is, the tougher it is to purchase it. But at the same time, having looked into that whole process myself, I totally understand why they are the way that they are. Okay, let's see. How's typing on the minimal phone compared to the Q25? Short and sweet answer to that one. It is better on the Q25, but I also find the minimal phone's keyboard to be perfectly adequate, and I think maybe even a little underrated. It could not be a more different experience. I mean, if I show you these here, I mean, just the keycap geometry on the Q25, which is just the classic BlackBerry, kind of curvature, very nicely contoured. On the minimal phone, they're just flat. They're just flat keycaps. I do, however, like how spaced out the keys are on the minimal phone. It makes for a typing experience to be quite nice, in my opinion. But yeah, the classic is it's a classic. It is what it is, and I still find it a joy. Whoa! Okay, we have a super chat here. $5 from Chance55 Field. Love the Game Gear and Zelda poster. Nope. Yes, thank you so much, Chance55 Field. That is amazingly generous of you. How do I do this? Let's do a like. There we go. But yeah, and I've talked about this I think before, but the Game Gear, wherever it is, was my and my brother's first ever in-home video game. So one year, Christmas, somehow my parents had scrapped together enough money to get 2 Game Gears for me and my 2 brothers to split. So yeah, we would fight about who got to play what. But yeah, that was it. And so I'm kind of a Sega guy. Like if I go all the way back to my roots, I'm more of a Sega guy. We were kind of confused when we went to Kmart to try and pick up some Mario games, and learned that, oh no, that's a Nintendo. Like we didn't know any of that. Like we didn't know that there were different companies making different characters and all of that. So yes, and then a short while after, I was at a yard sale with my mom, and we were lucky enough to find a lady that was selling an NES package of her sons who had moved off to college for very, very reasonable price. And so we weren't just Sega only for very long. We then became both Sega and Nintendo fans. Okay, so one more. Let's see. So yes, thank you again, Chance55. James, but the Clicks does have the minimal launcher, so that is a good thing. And I do agree. At times, I do wish I had a certain app from the time to time, something as simple as need digital tickets at times. Yes, and this what you're talking about here, James, is the problem that all of these companies in this, distraction-free tech, distraction-free or minimalist operating system are trying to solve. Where's that line? Basically, where is the line that you draw? And Clicks isn't necessarily trying to create a minimalist phone. They're just trying to create one that excels at communicating. And so incorporate, they have a partnership with Niagara Launcher or Niagara, depending on where you are, to pronounce that is going to help streamline that so it's a communication-centric device from the get-go. But at the same time, it's also just got open Android. So any old app that you might need is going to be on there. Long-winded way of saying society is making it hard to be smartphone free. Yes, James. Yes, it is. Man, James, you're just like dropping bombs here, and it's true. And this goes back to, I don't know if you joined the chat yet, but towards the beginning of the stream here, what I was talking about, how we have gone from smartphones and all of this big fluffy fancy tech being novel bonuses to have as part of our society and our culture, to flipping the whole thing on its head and made our society and our culture built upon them to be necessary to an extent. Now, you can do it in some ways without, but there are parts of the country where I think you would be really, really hard pressed to make it a week without some kind of a more or less modern smartphone, just because of the tech infrastructure between, tickets, rideshare, access to buildings, all of that kind of stuff. It's also smartphone centric now. It's honestly kind of a bummer, but we can return. We can go back. Slowpoke, does Clicks have a working demo? Clicks has a working demo of the Power Keyboard, which I was able to play with. Awesome. Can't wait for that. As far as the communicator, they do not have any prototypes with the printed circuit board, the PCB in and active yet. However, I did touch base with them a couple of days ago, just to kind of, say, hey, how's everything going? Is everything on track? And they said, yes, everything is on track. In fact, there was an unexpected good news thing that happened, but they didn't tell me what that was, and so I don't even know if it was related to communicator or if it was like the whole manufacturing thing as a whole. But in any case, everything seems to be progressing, on schedule. But to my knowledge, no, they don't have a working prototype yet. I do believe, but speaking of that schedule, on track to be, I want to say it was March or April they were planning. I don't know if they will have one at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona in March, but I think that right around that time, sometime, my estimate is, this isn't what they told me, but in my conversations with them, my estimate would be sometime, end of March through end of April, we'll start to see some form of a prototype making the rounds. Okay, let's see. Kyle Ray, 4952, agrees with James. I want to go back to the time of dumb phones, but there are too many times a smartphone is almost needed, especially for me, group messaging apps. Yeah, Kyle Ray, this is another one of the dilemmas. So Beeper, for those of you that aren't familiar, Beeper I think is a really interesting concept to where you can basically bring all of your messaging services into a single point of entry to your device. Similar in a way to the way the BlackBerry Hub used to be, but it's actually all of it. It can send and receive messages through those different apps, be it WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook Messenger, Instagram DMs, all through the app itself. So you don't need all of the other apps on your device. You just need the Beeper app. But it also strips away some of the more distracting elements. So for example, to my knowledge, Beeper doesn't have a web browser built into it. So opening links, you would have to have a web browser on your device in order to do that. And so I have seen some companies, in terms of ones developing distraction-free or minimalist operating systems for their devices, use Beeper as a way to kind of bridge that gap to where you still have the messaging functionality of those different apps, but you don't have some of the other distracting elements of those apps as well. So that reminds me, let me take a quick sip here, guys. Did a lot of talking today. So the difference between vintage and retro. This is where I think we're actually going to go over to the interwebs. And let's go to, so I see this Merriam-Webster. A lot of times, in fact, if you go to, well, here, I can show you because I've got my computer right in front of me. Oh, guys, what a day. Let's see, reddit.com/r/retro gaming. I think this is the one. Yes. Okay. So look at this, my friends. This is something that I'm just throwing it out there. This is the r/retro gaming sub. And then right here, Reddit's home of vintage gaming, a community for vintage gaming. And then you go into the rules and stuff, and it's all about vintage gaming. So why say retro gaming if you're only referring to vintage gaming? And this is something where I find these terms get erroneously, they're not synonymous, I guess is what I'm saying here. So Merriam-Webster. So if we look up the word retro, and some of you are familiar with my tirades on this, and I apologize, just bear with me here for a minute. So relating to, reviving, or being the styles and especially the fashions of the past. Fashionably nostalgic or old-fashioned, a retro look. So basically, retro means new, but with elements of or in the style of old things. Vintage is the actual old things. So let's see. Seasons, okay, not the wine stuff. Grapes. Length of existence. Adjective. Where we go? Okay, here we go. Of old, recognized and enduring interest. Dating from the past. That's the one we're looking for right here. So whenever you hear me use the term retro gaming, I will almost exclusively be referring to playing older games on retro hardware, meaning one of my favorite ones of recent years. For example, my Chromatic right here. So this is a new production Game Boy, but it gives you the ability to play cartridges, whether they are new or, let's see if I've got one here. I know at least one person on the stream is going to recognize this bag. You can also throw in, say for example, one of my favorites from yesteryear, Kicks. It can play original hardware and the new stuff. So that, to me, is an excellent example of retro hardware, as opposed to something like this, which is vintage hardware. It's the actual old stuff, as opposed to new, but with elements of the old, or in the style of old. So going back to my very beginning thing that I was talking about on the stream here, this is why I like the retro hardware a little bit more than the vintage stuff, just because, I don't know, it's the old meets new, and I think it's what we kind of need in society right now. Okay, whoa, we got another super chat, guys. This is, why do you give me money? I just love it so much. Like, thank you, and I hope I can live up to it. Okay, let's see. Slowpoke, nice, didn't want to wait. Yeah, no, the prototypes will be coming much sooner than end of the year. Okay, going back to Kyle. I first started my journey wanting a smaller smartphone to be used as a tool again, and I got the Jelly Star. Typing was so annoying that I wished it had a keyboard. Yes, the Jelly Star, you know, Kyle and everyone, I tried the Jelly Star for a little while, and I couldn't get it to click. Yeah. Oh yeah. This is much more of a device that, I don't know, like I used the Jelly Star for a couple of days, and I couldn't get it to happen for me personally. And then here comes the Blue Fox NX1, and I don't know, it's I think it's a little bit smaller than the Star, but it has maybe a larger screen. I can't remember. I did a giveaway several months ago with the Jelly Star, and so that's why I couldn't do a side-by-side comparison. But I'm with you. It's like, I love the benefits of a small phone, but yeah, keyboard on a screen this size, it does take some getting used to, but it is get used toable for me at least. And like I mentioned, I've got those big farmer hands, like you can kind of see here. It's not like I've got tiny little fingers to make these work, but yeah, definitely I'm and yeah, Kyle, you know I'm all about the keyboards. So Henry's with us too. Oh guys, this is you're gonna make my face turn red for happiness here. So many of my favorite people all together. Retro for the win. Yes. What is this? Oh, let's make the SLC get together happen. Yes. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for bringing this up. Okay, my friends. Spread the word. August 15th, it is a Saturday. I, as well as some of my friends in the space, Jose Briones and a couple of the companies as well, are going to be organizing an intentional and retro tech gathering. Now, I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how big of a venue to get. But I am going to, hopefully in the next couple of days, go and make an event, probably Eventbrite or something, just so that I can start to get a head count. But at very least, we will have a get together with all of the retroverts that can make it, and hang out, eat some super cheap pizza and just talk about all of the wonderful, the wonderful world of intentional, minimal, and retro tech. But, if enough people show interest, like, we might flip it into kind of a convention style thing with, booths. There have been a couple of companies that have expressed interest in coming and kind of showcasing some of their products and things that they are working on. But I will say this, it will need to be, for it to get to that level, it will need to be a team effort here. So, if this is something that you're interested in, or maybe even interested in helping me make this happen, please, send me a message either on Reddit, go over to the Discord, or Instagram. Those are probably, or my email, jake@returningretro.com. If this is something that you guys would like to participate in, either as an attendee or maybe help me with the planning and the organizing side of things, do let me know. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I obviously the goal would be for it to become, I call it InTech, intentional tech convention, where we could have our own little convention for intentional, purpose built, and retro technology. So yes, thank you, LB56CJ, who I apologize. The username. I think let me know who you are, and thank you so much for the super chat. How about that superb owl? I don't know if I know what owl we're talking about, Haglar. Am I missing something here? Maybe I am. It's been a long day. Let me know. Let me know what owl we're talking about here. And yes, okay. So we talked vintage versus retro. I had a list of things I wanted to talk about with you guys today, and those were the big ones. Oh, Super Bowl. Oh my gosh, that's probably, yes. There you go. Oh, I mentioned this earlier in the chat, or earlier in the stream. I am one that all through growing up, I played sports. I played football all the way through high school, and then I did track and field in high school as well. And then once I got to college, I actually played rugby. For those that are familiar with the sport, loved it. I've never been able to get into the spectator side of things. I mean, I'll go to a game or a match or something if it's here locally like that. In person sporting is a lot of fun. But yeah, watching it on TV, I don't know. Outside of I'll catch some of the matches of like the Rugby World Cup, or even the Soccer World Cup. And that's always kind of fun. In past years, I would catch some playoff games from the Super Bowl or the Super Bowl itself, but I've never really gotten into that side of things. And here at this stage of life, I'm just interested in other things like intentional and retro tech. So cool. Well, guys, let's see, how long have we been going here? Not quite an hour. Yeah, we can go as long as you guys would like to. I would like to know, maybe from some of you guys. So I love, so clicks, I think. Well, okay, I brought some stuff down here. Okay, so obviously there's sort of I've called it a renaissance happening around one of my favorite types of intentional tech. I would even call it retro tech, something that used to be really, really popular and common that is not anymore, but that some companies are bringing it back a bit. I think that is very retro. The physical keyboard phone, the QWERTY phone, if you're in an English speaking country. So we've got a number of different companies in that space that are sort of bringing that back, which I love. Minimal Company, Clicks. We've got Keyphone we've talked about already. There's Side Phone coming out really soon. Unihertz has been making some of their stuff, kind of all the way throughout. So that's one example. One of the things that I was, and maybe I was sleeping under, living in a cave, for the last while, but the people at Mod Retro, the people, I don't have one, or I would hold it, at Analog is another one doing it. There are a number of companies that are doing kind of the same thing that we're seeing this resurgence in physical keyboards on phones in this 8 through 64-bit video game space. And I think that it is so cool. I talked about this briefly at the beginning of the chat, or of the stream. I don't know why I keep calling it a chat. Probably because I keep looking at the chat. Where I think that there are so many benefits to 8 through 64-bit gaming that are just not really to be had in some of the newer, mainstream games. That's not to say that they're not, technical marvels. That's not to say that they're not enjoyable for a lot of people or beautiful to look at. But I saw a video, and if I can remember, I will link to it here well, actually, here, let's do this, guys. Let's do this, and then I know that we've got some chats that are building up here, but let me jump over here really quickly. I think I included a link to it on, let's see, Crackberry. Let's see. I think I included it in my Crackberry article about Chromatic. And let's see. You guys can see this, right? Nod if you can see this. I'm just kidding here. Joe, welcome. So glad you could make it, my friend. Guys, Joe is awesome. Go find him on Instagram or Twitter. We connected recently. A lot of the same some shared interests. He's a great dude. Um, let's see where I think I included patch notes. Yes, this one right here. Okay, here it is. So I'll include a link to this in this stream so that you can go back to it. But I love this video because it talks about, low poly games being better. So he talks about here a number of, for him, he goes back to Halo Combat Evolved, which for me, love that game. But I would take what he's talking about here and go back to some of even, earlier games. Let's see if I can find where he's got some screen. Here we go. So like Mario 64 is an example for me, which is kind of the Mario 64 for me, just maybe because of my age, is a little bit more on the end of the end of like that generation, before the end of the old school games where the modern gaming just about let me put it this way. Halo to me was kind of the entrance for modern gaming. And I know, in fact, my brothers and I talked about this on our podcast, I think a few episodes ago, but it sort of is a little bit different for everybody. But for me, Halo Combat Evolved marks the beginning of modern gaming, where if I'm playing, one of the modern Halos or one of the modern, Call of Duties, it has more in common, in my view, with Halo Combat Evolved than Halo Combat Evolved has with GoldenEye 007 as an example. But anyway, going back to this video here, he articulated an idea that I had sort of been thinking about for some time, but I'd never really said it out loud or read anyone else, talking about it. But he talks about how low poly games, or these 8 through 64-bit games, as I refer to them, are a more enjoyable experience in a lot of ways, simply because of what your brain is able to do when you are focused on this very, very specific, low poly experience, as opposed to a massive AAA, beautiful, gorgeous, don't get me wrong, and fun game where there is all of this input data and it leaves nothing to the imagination. That is one thing that modern gaming, I feel like it just lacks for me, is it doesn't require any imagination. It's all there. And that's not to even talk about some of on the other side of it, maybe the more nefarious side of it, where we can tell that they are basically just trying to farm you for microtransaction money, or pump and dump, where they'll game after game after game just to get you to buy the next one and really get into it. Games used to be very different. Their model, I think, for generating revenue was creating good experiences, whether it was gameplay, whether it was story. Hopefully it was both, in the case of like the Zelda series, for example. But the gameplay aspect itself, because it was so low res, low poly, your brain had less mental load required to take in all of the data that game was sending to you, and allowed it to focus and imagine. And so I think this is the other thing too, my friends. It's not just a nostalgia thing. Like recently, gotta grab this here. I just finished a playthrough of Chanty, which is a Game Boy Color game published by Mod Retro, created by, I don't know if you can see that there. My camera is having a hard time. Gorton, can I get it to... and I drop it. Never mind. I'll put links. But anyway, this didn't exist back in the day, back when Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance was coming out, and I just did a playthrough of it, and I had such an amazing time playing this game. It was, even Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, which is a game that I do like quite a bit of the modern gaming. And again, that's an indie game. That's not even like a big AAA game. It was fine, but playing this very well-made 8-bit game where you can just tell that the developer was working. Shout out to KC if he ever ends up seeing this at Gordon Code. The was working within constraints that forced him to be creative, to be genuine in what he was making. And that experience totally came through to me as the player. Currently, I'm on a playthrough of Buck and the Cursed Cartridge. Again, a Game Boy game, published by Mod Retro for the Chromatic, or also works on the old Game Boys as well. These, you can just tell, and this is why I'm so excited to learn that we've got some of these new games coming out for the likes of the Nintendo 64 platform. We know some of those. I also recently realized that there are all kinds of indie games that are out there that are making these same things, where it's a low poly, a lo-fi game where they sort of develop within constraints that used to be normal, and so publishers at the time, or developers at the time, had very specific hardware constraints that they had to operate within, and the gameplay was just or rather the game experience was just phenomenal. And again, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I think you guys get what I'm saying here. The gaming used to be so different for a number of different reasons. There's not just this one, and it's enjoyable today not just because of a nostalgia factor. Like, I can play these brand new games that didn't exist back then and have as much or more enjoyment from it as I did back then. So if it's just nostalgia, how can it happen to me now, brand new, with a brand new game? I think it's because there's something to be said about the game experience itself on low poly, low res, 8 through 64-bit games. Okay, let me come down off my soapbox for a bit here and get caught up. Let's see, Super Bowl. Not trying to get. Oh, I like it. Gotcha. I didn't know they were going into YouTube comments to do copyright claims. Anything new about the Titan Pro? Honestly, the Titan Pro. I think you might be referring to the Titan 2 Elite. I haven't heard anything back from them. They reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in a review sample of the upcoming Titan 2 Elite, which they had announced at that time. Some of you may have seen my post that I had done about it. And then everything else has been basically just their public announcements. They've done a number of posts to their social media, including their YouTube page, with little snippets of things. In fact, let's go over and we can look at that a little bit if you guys want to. Okay, we're already at YouTube. Let's go to Unihertz. And if we go to, let's go to their channel. Can we find their channel? Unihertz official. Well, let me do it right from here. Okay, there we go. So let's pause that and let's go over to, I think a lot of them are short. No, they're not shorts. They're categorized here. Okay, so I'm just going to pull this up here and then I'll mute it. So this is something that they announced recently, where it appears they are creating firmware and software to make it so that the keyboard is split into partitions in terms of using it as a trackpad, where on one side you can use it for scrolling, whereas on the other side you can use it for mouse control, which I think is really neat. For me, I always like, the old Blackberries had something similar. The Q25 has something similar where you can turn on mouse mode instead of scroll mode. But this is the first time that I have seen an example of having both active at the same time, where they've essentially partitioned the keyboard. So that came out 9 days ago. They did another one recently. Let's see what this says. Refresh your scroll. I don't know if I've seen this one. What are we doing here, guys? Display. Oh, right. They go in and they show that it is, you can select the refresh rate you want anywhere from, which the interface, when I saw that, I was like, man, that looks a lot like the same refresh rate selection menu from I don't have it with me, the 8849 Tank X, which I did a video on recently. And then I remembered they're all the same company, so that makes sense why they would look the same. So yes, but yeah, in terms of, maybe non-public facing information, I haven't received any, but, there's been a lot of coverage around the Titan 2 Elite, that, anytime they will drop something like that, people will go in and do their analysis and their thoughts, but I haven't heard anything, myself, other than what's been out there public facing. Okay. Anything? Let's see. Haggler. Real shout out to Retro Game Core for showing me some good handhelds with emulators. Yes. So Russ at Retro Game Core is awesome. I actually met him at CES. I think I posted a picture of that somewhere. Stellar, super cool. I mean, he is just as nice and down to earth in real life as he seems in his videos. I think that emulation handhelds are fine. I own several of them, but since sort of discovering these new publishers in the 8-bit in the terms of Game Boy space, I just haven't gone back to the emulator handhelds since. For me, just the whole experience of I'm sitting here, I'm done with my game. Okay, I'm going to flip the switch. I'm going to take out the cartridge. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to look for the next one. Find it, put it back in. I just love the total package experience, and you don't really get that with the emulation handhelds. Again, not to necessarily discredit them, but it's an experience that I prefer using the actual cartridges. But emulation handhelds are great for people that are looking for maybe an entry into vintage and retro gaming, whether they never had them before. They're also usually quite a bit cheaper. So the Chromatic, as an example, here let's do some web sleuthing. Let's see, let's go to modretro.com. Oh yeah, they're doing a Valentine's sale. So you buy one, get one 20% off. So if we go to Chromatic, if you do the Gorilla Glass version, it's $200. If you do the Sapphire version, it's $300. Again, if there aren't any sales going on, or if you don't have any coupons. Let's go to Analog. Let's go to Analog Pocket. Let's see what these run for. And these are a little bit different. My understanding is they can take carts, but they also have some emulation abilities as well. I don't have one of these. I've been meaning to get one. Okay, guys. Oh, there it was. Visit our store. Where did it go? No. Oh, where did it go? Okay, there you go. So $219 for the. So you compare that out of stock. No. Dang it. Okay, if anyone has a lead on an Analog Pocket, let me know. But then you compare that to, say, for example, Anbernic. If we go to one of my favorite Anbernics, let's see, handheld game console, and we go to the RG. Where are you, buddy? Right here. Yeah, the RG35XX. It's $40 on their website. You could probably get it cheaper if you did AliExpress or some of the others. So there's definitely a big gap there in terms of price, but it also is one of those situations where you kind of get what you pay for. I mean, the quality, the fit and finish of, a magnesium alloy Chromatic, the buttons and everything, it definitely feels much nicer. So you get that proportional quality increase over some of these retro handhelds. But again, I'm not saying that they're bad. I think they're great, and I have several of them, and I'll do tests with them periodically. But I do prefer the cartridge experience over them. Okay, yes, let's go back over to the chat, guys. I love this. I love the participation. This really makes for a wonderful experience for me. And I do think I'm knock on wood, I'm gonna see if I can try and do this a couple of times a month. The live stream, I think it's a great way to be able to learn from you guys, as well as hopefully help answer some of your questions that you might have. And it will probably I posted a couple of polls, or a poll, in 3 different places: Discord, Reddit, and YouTube. And most people are saying mornings or evenings work for them. And so it's probably going to be evening. my friends, it's just a little bit easier for me so that I don't have to get up before work to do it. Tyler in the house. Tyler, so glad you could make it tonight. Let's see. Indie games are almost always better, especially if you count the enjoyment to dollar ratio. I love it. Yes, I totally agree. And again, going back to a comment that I had made earlier, you can just feel through the game experience itself that these indie developers, they're just more passionate about the game that they are making. They have constraints, whether it's hardware limitations, whether it's more often than not budget limitations. They have to be way more creative in how they develop their games, and you feel the creativity, the ingenuity, and the passion. And at the same time, a lot of times you're going to pay less than for one of the modern, big budget AAA games. So totally agree with you, Tyler. Slowpoke, yep, Titan Elite we talked about. Kumiho 1720, welcome to the chat, my friend. Side phone versus Titan 2 Elite versus clicks. Okay, that is a good thing we could talk about. Side phone is very different than the communicator and the Titan 2 Elite. Side phone is designed with very much a intentional tech, minimalist tech, distraction-free tech angle in mind, whereas the Titan 2 Elite is designed to be basically a BlackBerry in today's world, and the Clicks is kind of designed to be if BlackBerry never would have stopped making phones, this is what it would be today. The Titan 2 Elite and Clicks are both running regular Android with their own refinements on top of them. So, Unihertz has their version of Android that they have on their Titan devices. Clicks has partnered with Niagara launcher so it's going to be very much communication focused. SidePhone has their own version of their operating system. I believe they're calling it Side OS. It is an AOSP based de-Googled version of Android, and so you will be able to get some apps from their app library. They're going to go in and approve and include the ability to download several apps from their own app library directly, but they also did decide to go ahead and allow the end user to sideload apps that they might want or need as well, compared to other devices that have some of those software changes blocking you from doing so. For example, Keyphone is one. Let's see, Sleek with Odyssey OS. I don't believe they allowed sideloading at all. Pause OS, an up and comer in the space. Light Phone, Light OS doesn't allow sideloading. So, and SidePhone also has that modularity side of things to it. So let's go while we're here. Let's jump back over. And let's go to sidephone.com. Oh, boom, look at that, beautiful. So you can see here they have the modular tiles that they are calling them. So here you've got Sundial, which this is kind of meant to be sort of a multimedia tile. It's not a scroll wheel. It actually is just 9 different buttons that you can click down on, and you can map them to whatever you want. Then, of course, you've got the traditional T9 keypad, and then you've got the compact QWERTY here, which is very similar to the old BlackBerry style, 2-for-1, 2 letters per button, sure type style. And yeah, you can just hot swap them. Anytime you need to use a different one for different functionality, you can do that. It also does have a touchscreen, and so when you're using, for example, the Sundial, you can have the virtual keyboard pop up and use that as you like. This is also a relatively small device in the hand. So to give you an example, I did a side-by-side comparison when I had both the Keyphone and SidePhone at the Bring Back BlackBerry event, and SidePhone was smaller than Keyphone even. And so it will be very pocketable. In fact, it is very pocketable. I really enjoyed some hands-on, special thanks to Chris and Sebastian for letting me play with the SidePhone prototypes that they had with them at CES. I am really excited for this, and just for the people here, I am intending on probably using SidePhone as my primary with my main SIM card in it, that all my friends and family have that phone number, and then the communicator, Clicks Communicator, I anticipate will be my work phone. So that will be where I have all of my chat apps, all of my returning retro stuff, all of my day job stuff, so Microsoft and all of the apps there. I'm planning on using Communicator for that side of things, and SidePhone will be my not my phone that I have on the side, but rather the phone that never leaves my side. To be a little punny there. Okay. Oh, here we go. We got some stuff in the chat here. Let's go over. Italian boy Joe says, agreed. I like what you said in your DM about how cartridges help reset your brain. Yes, to refocus, while an emulation handheld does not do that. And I do like my Mio Mini, but I love the Chromatic more. Yes, a perfect example. That whole process that I just did here in front of you, that it offers you a bit of a cognitive reset where you can give your brain a second to pause. Where a lot of people don't realize this, but like when you have one of these emulation handhelds, your brain never really stops. So even when you go and you stop playing one game, let's say you do a save or a save state, and you immediately go back to your emulator list or to RetroArch or whatever you're using, and you're starting to look for the next thing, your brain, it never stops. It never disconnects from that digital interface. Whereas, with cartridge-based play, it does. Even when you're looking for your other cartridge, your brain can just kind of rest and reset. It's these little things that a lot of people don't really think about, especially if they've never experienced it for themselves. How would they? Okay, let's see. Yes, Henry. I love how compact the Titan 2 Elite, but we'll be keeping my pre-order for the communicator. And if there has to be a winner, I think it'll come down to the software. In the end, we all win. Love it, Henry. Couldn't agree more. I'm definitely planning on getting both of them in. I think that they will be very different. It's yet to be seen whether or not the Titan Elite will have things that we know the communicator will. For example, I haven't seen anywhere if there will be expandable memory on the Titan Elite. I haven't seen if there will be a headphone jack. I haven't seen if there will be a notification LED like the communicator has the signal light. A number of different things. There are so many unknowns about the Titan Elite. They do have a prototype that they have started to show off, but there are a number of things that we don't know about it that we do know about communicator. So yes, also do let me know. I'm curious. What colorway are you going to go with on the communicator? We talked about it earlier in the chat. I was going to go Stormtrooper, the smoke, the white with the black, and then a black back cover. But I think Kevin sold me on Gatorade, the green, the clover, the olive drab green with the orange backplate. So curious, Henry, which one you're going to go with. Kyle, yeah, Italian. Like when I had Game Pass, I struggled to beat any game because I had so many games to choose from. Low commitment to anything I was playing. Yes, Kyle. See this? Yes, my retroverts. It is so nice to be among my people. Yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about here. Henry, as for retro gaming, I was looking at the Trim UI Brick Hammer, but you make a great point about how new retro games and indie developers. I have some thinking to do now. Very good. See, we're spurning thinking and conversation. James is back. Do you believe Unihertz will come through, as they say on OS updates? Their past history has me saying no. Okay, this is a great question. I've said it many times. Talk is cheap, and actions speak louder than words. Unihertz has done a lot of talking. Now it is time to see if the follow-through is there with their actions. I am being on it. A credit where credit is due. They have made improvements with each of their devices. However, I am skeptical as to whether they will be able to fundamentally shift their entire approach, namely kind of a pump and dump, one device, it's out there, we'll give you maybe one update onto the next one, into multiple year software supports, both, patches, bug fixes, security updates, and major OS things. I don't know. We haven't seen them do it before. That's not to say that they couldn't do it, but I am skeptical as to whether or not we will see that. Everything is possible, but I am skeptical. Henry's back. As a tinker, half the time I spend setting up the device versus finishing the game on it. But yes, that's very true. Spencer Lee, 1943. I'm most excited to see a hands-on review for Sidephone. Yeah, me too. I would love to be the guy that got to do it, but I also would just love to see one. But yes, I've been in contact with the founders there at Sidephone. They are working. I don't know if it's around the clock, but yes, they are making their last push to get it across the finish line. I think that there was they were waiting on the compact QWERTY, hadn't arrived with the side phones themselves, and so they're trying, and there's some software, some fine tuning of the software side of things. So I think it's got to be close, my friends. I know that they had originally said they were shooting for December, and then January, and then here we find ourselves in February. Stuff happens. Like I'm not upset about it personally. Maybe some people are, but I think that we're really close for those Founders Edition ones to start to be shipped out. Tyler's back. I always use an emulated cartridge on the original Game Boy. It's easier than trying to find a physical game at the local vintage video game store. Interesting, Tyler. So are you referring to Guys, don't mind the goofy pajamas. I actually just picked this up the other day. Are you talking about something like this? So this is the EverDrive GBX5. You can see I haven't even opened it yet. Is this what you're talking about, where you can basically load the game file onto this and then play it in your thing? Let me know if that's what you're referring to here. But yeah, this is definitely something that I want to test out and see how that works, because again, you're even you're even saving the condition of your vintage hardware more so with that. Let's see, and not to mention the cost. I mean, personally, I know that all the games are out there, the ROMs are out there, you can get them. I try to only use ROM files, game files for games that I own a physical copy of, because I like to support the companies that are going to go out and develop this stuff. But for those that maybe don't know, there are indie developers that will develop Game Boy games, for example, that they don't have the resources to release a cartridge for. So they will just do a virtual file that you would need a cartridge like this on in order to be able to play it on your Chromatic or your Analog Pocket or your original Game Boy, versus just doing it on a computer. Let's see. Oh, jumping ahead to Tyler. At this point, who became switched to a tender to unlock the bootloader, as long as they release the source code, they are legal already. Yeah. Unihertz. Unihertz is unihertzing. Yes, that's the exact. Okay, yeah. So talking about the EverDrive, cool. Yeah. Italian boy, going back to Joe. Kyle, exactly, that was my problem. Now with cartridge-based play, I can stay committed to a single game until I beat it. Currently on Mario Golf for Game Boy Color via Chromatic. Yes, and this is something too that I think this is such a great point that you guys bring up here, of being able to focus in on something. So the first game that I beat a playthrough on in a long, long time, I can show you here. Guys, I need to do better at using OBS. I have it set up here. Modretro.com. And then if we go to games, and then if we go down here and we go to Mod Retro Original, right here, Wicked Plague. So this is what they call a Metroidvania. So if you're familiar with the old Metroid games, the 2D Metroid games, or the 2D Castlevania games, it's in that style. So they call them Metroidvania. This was so fun. Like, it's, blown up on this big screen. It doesn't look great, but once you get in there, the gameplay is solid. The story is very unique. You're not going to be for everyone. But this was one where it was like such a good mix of difficult, but not so. So for example, like I'm a dad. Like I work full time. So I'm busy there. I'm engaged in family activities with extended family. I'm like super engaged with my church. Like I'm a busy dude. Not to mention the returning retro and everything going on there. So when it comes to gaming, I want to have something that has like that Goldilocks mix of being something that is challenging, is fun, that it's not just a cakewalk, but not so difficult that it's like, with my very, very limited time for something like this, I don't want to be grinding just to make almost no progress whatsoever. Wicked Plague, as well as several of the Mod Retro games that I've played so far, is a really good balance where for a busy working dad like myself, it was a good, like, that Goldilocks experience. Now I can't remember what we were talking about. Let's see. My rule is, if it's not for sale, it's a free game. Oh, interesting. I can see where you're coming from on that. My rule is a little different. I try to buy a copy if I can, used, naturally, since none of this stuff is. And Nintendo is a bit of a special case. They have some very shall we call it, anti-consumer behavior, and so yeah, like I'm all for if especially like indie developers and stuff like that. Like I want to support when I can, but yeah, if you go out of your way to make it more difficult for people to enjoy your stuff. I can kind of sympathize a little bit more, Tyler, with your with your rule there. Kyle, got ahead of mine. Good chat, good update, good stock. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Kyle. Yep, we'll see you in the next one. We'll talk soon. Wicked Played was pretty good. Dragon Inn all around good. Traumatarium was my favorite of the Mod Retro release games. So Traumatarium, this is one I'm kind of curious about. I don't know much about it. Okay, and Mrs. Retro hasn't. She must be still watching one of her shows. So we're good. Okay, here we go. Traumatarium. What is this even? A roguelike dungeon crawler with permadeath and permanent upgrades. Each run is short, sharp, and brutal. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, I've seen this one. I've seen this one talked about. But like when I come here and I watch these little snippets they have here. I mean, this tells me nothing, Joe. I have no idea what I'm even looking at here. I mean, I'm guessing this is the D-pad, but it's like what is the game? What does it do? I mean, I'm definitely curious about it. Like the artwork is awesome. Like I can give it that. Like it looks very well made. But I'm like, what is even happening here? Anyway, yeah, maybe I'll have to look into it for sure. Let's see, go back here. Okay, let me take a little sip here. Oh, here we go. Traumatarium is a point-and-click navigation dungeon crawler. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I definitely have to check that out. That's interesting. Okay, so let's see. I mean, I'll keep talking as long as you guys keep chatting with me. So we shall continue. There was oh yes. So for those of you that don't know, as I'm sure most of you are aware, the M64 is coming. As they just added this red colorway as well. So this is I'm very excited for this. Following the not chromatic, the analog. What do they call it? The analog 3D, I think they called it. Yes, the analog 3D. So again, I just love that we are having companies doing this. Now I don't know. With Mod Retro, I've been able to learn that Mod Retro themselves are publishing new Game Boy games and are intending on doing the same with the M64 that is coming out. So as in new production, new publish, not just republishing old stuff, which they are doing some of that as well, but actual new games coming for the M64. There are a number of different companies that are doing that in addition to Mod Retro, which I had not known about. So if we go to, let's see, oh, come on, no, Google, stop it. Incubate. So these guys are doing it. They've got, you can come here and get these games. I've heard good things about Infinity. Let me know in the chat if anyone knows or if anyone has any experience with this. Definitely one that I'm considering picking up. But yeah, so here's Incubate Games. You can get newly published or re-releases of homebrew games, or the re-releases of others that have come from before. What was let's see, Homebrew Factory was another one that I'd heard of. I think this is what they're called. Let's go to the USA shop. There we go. Yeah, so here you go again. So Repugnant Bounty is the one that I had seen somewhere, and I was like, oh, talk about a Metroid inspired. For those of you that are familiar with Metroid 2, there are a lot of similarities here with this. But yeah, this is just another example. So Mod Retro was the one that kind of turned me on to it. But it's so cool to see others that are doing it as well. Which again, as I've said probably 3 times already in this stream, I think that there's more going on here than just nostalgia. I think that there is a truly there's a non-nostalgia appeal to 8 through 64 or low poly gaming that just anyone can enjoy, even if they didn't have it before. Let's see. So yeah, we've got the M64, we've got the Analog 3D, which I also don't have any experience with yet. I am hoping to get my hands on some of these soon. In fact, I'm really crossing my fingers that I'll be getting an M64 as literally as soon as they become available. A couple of things that are kind of cool about it that I didn't know until I talked with Nick at CES. So the button right here, you can see the Mod Retro gray button. That is straight up a Super Nintendo style cartridge ejector. So you don't have to yank the cartridge out like you do on a regular Nintendo 64. You can just press it that way. The controller, I believe they have said, is coming after. I don't know if it's going to be ready at launch of the M64. I don't think it's going to be bundled with it. But I do think that some third-party controllers will be compatible. Obviously the OG Nintendo 64 controllers will work based off of the ports in the front there, but some other controllers, I think, don't quote me on this because I don't know, but I think will be compatible as well. So for example, if we go to the Retro Fighters, they have a Nintendo 64 style controller. There is also, what was the other one? I think it was 8-Bit Do. And I almost actually ordered this one the other day, my friends. Let me find it here. Where did it go? That one. And of course, they've got some kind of a partnership going on with Analog. Yeah, here we go. Look at this. Oh, that is just such a gorgeous controller. For those of you that don't know, and I apologize, I'm sure I say that way more than I need to, but for those of you that don't know, the Nintendo 64 was like the console that defined my childhood. So I had it, right during that crossover between basically, childhood, youth, and preteen, teenage years. And so yeah, any time I see something that is Nintendo 64 themed, it just fills me with joy. Okay, let's jump back over to the chat. Joe, yes, M64. Let's go. Yep, the M64 could be. Did you get that retro cup from Pizza Hut? Oh, finally, someone. I'm so glad, Spencer, my friend. I love these like cafe style see-through plastic. The Pizza Hut red. No, I did not get this at Pizza Hut, but that is one of the reasons that I did get this is because it reminds me of, Pizza Hut or a place that I know some of you on the stream will remember called High Mountain Drug that had, in their diner section, they would have cups like this. So yes, you get the win for recognizing. Okay, let's see, Henry. Currently, when I can steal some free time for myself, I'm playing Pokemon Lazarus. It's a patched version of Emerald. Okay, interesting. I never played. I mean, this guy's. I have to admit, I never played anything past Yellow. Pokemon Yellow was the last Pokemon game that I played, and I know, my brothers, for example, have played some of the newer ones. I think Crystal is one that I think, or was it Silver? I think Crystal, which kind of funny. Where I grew up, just down, not a ways down the street from me, there was a rodeo arena where you could come and there were. You could do team roping. They had bucking shoots as well. For those of you that are familiar. And one day I was down there doing something. I can't even remember what it was. I think there was a pasture there offset, and we would sometimes rent it for grazing some steers that we had. And I think that's what it was. Coming back to me as I'm saying this, I put some hay in, and I noticed that I stepped on something that did not feel like grass or hay. And so I bent down there, and there on the ground at this rodeo arena in the middle of one of the most rural parts of the great state of Utah is a Pokemon Crystal game cartridge. I had no idea where it came from. There was no name on it, and there wasn't, I asked around to see if anyone in my tiny little village of a couple hundred people had lost the game, and I never could find the owner, and so just kept it. And I think my brothers both ended up playing it quite a bit, and I never did. Like I said, I really enjoyed the original. Pokemon Red was a favorite. Blue was great. I loved Yellow. I loved the Pikachu version, but I never played anything past that. So, but that's cool. Like I know that there are. What do they call them? ROM hacks, where they basically take the original game and then they just put a bunch of extra stuff into it to the extent that it basically becomes a separate game. But yeah, so that's cool. With an original story, so far so good. I'll probably finish by then. Yeah, cool. Going back to Joe. Yes, Homebrew Factory is where I ordered the original. Yes, Okay, so Traumatarium was one. I thought I had seen some that were published by both Homebrew Factory and Mod Retro. So maybe that was one of them that I saw. Henry, so excited for the N64 revival. My kiddo and I are finishing up Ocarina, and soon we'll go to Majora's Mask. Silver was my favorite. Oh, Pokemon Stadium. Yeah, Pokemon Stadium. My kiddo knows way more than I can keep up with that. Wow, that's an awesome story. Yes, it was an awesome find for sure. So this is another great, a great point of discussion. I am a big fan of the Legend of Zelda series. I've played a lot of them. I think that, if I could only take one, if it was like a desert island type of a thing, and I could only have one, I think that it would probably be, let's see, I think I've got it. This guy right here. Can you guys see that? That's a very well-loved Link's Awakening DX. I don't know what it is about it. It's, the storyline is very quirky. There are a lot of Easter eggs from other Nintendo properties in it. But I just can play it over and over again. I played that version. I did pick up the what would you call it, a remaster? The 3D remake for the Nintendo Switch, and that was a lot of fun. But I think a very close second for me is probably Majora's Mask. I don't know if it was because I actually did a playthrough of Majora's Mask before Ocarina of Time. I don't know. There's something about Majora's Mask I just enjoy. I mean, let's be honest. For those that are familiar, Majora's Mask is essentially just you could almost call it an expansion of Ocarina of Time. I believe it was made in the same engine as Ocarina of Time with the assets that were still available. Very rushed, but I don't know if it was just because it's like the dark story, or there were a little bit more fleshed out gameplay mechanics. So for example, the mask system that added some gameplay mechanics that just weren't there in Ocarina of Time. Though I do say probably Ocarina of Time had the more engaging story. But yeah, the overall gameplay of Majora's Mask with so many different side quests and things that you could do. I don't know. So I would say, yeah, my Desert Island Legend of Zelda, it's got to be Link's Awakening with Majora's Mask in a very close second. Maybe 1.5 place. Let's see. Silver. Back to Joe. I was never much of a Zelda guy except Link's Awakening. Fantastic game, great original soundtrack. Yes, yep, the music as well. I think I've got, for one of my contacts, the Link's Awakening main theme is for when they call me. Cool. Well, guys, I'm kind of winding things down here a little bit. I mean, I can keep droning on for sure, but I don't want to get to the point where it's not engaging for you either. Let's see, Homebrew Factory. Was there anything else I wanted to go over? We talked about how, yeah, I'm gonna do my best to make it somewhat of a more regular. Originally I planned on doing it monthly. Potentially, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. There's some potential, schedule changes coming up for me. Well, so this is a goal. It's not a plan yet. But yeah, I really do enjoy the back and forth. I mean, you guys have all been super, super awesome. Again, another huge thank you for the super chats. That is really huge for me. But yeah, maybe again, just a reminder. August 15th, I think it should be a Saturday. We're gonna try and plan an intentional and retro tech meetup Salt Lake City somewhere. Not really sure what venue it's going to be because, I'll kind of need to get a head count and see, who's all interested in basically attending versus, there have been a couple of companies that have expressed some interest in, exhibiting as well. So I think it'll be a really cool event one way or the other. But yeah, I'll have more details on that. But if it is something that you are, interested in attending and or potentially helping to organize, volunteering with, or whatever, please let me know. Reach out to me, Jake at returningretro.com, or you can DM me on Reddit, Instagram, or Discord. We've got Eric's here. Hey, did you see this? Where's side phone? Where's Waldo posted on the side phone Reddit? Oh, you better believe I did. And I also saw the one where someone had done the jet, and then I, of course, had to jump in and put my Where's Carmen Sandiego with the side phone. Yes, so I did see that, Eric. Which again, I love that. I love that the community is this is so two communities that I've just been super impressed with. Are the people in the side phone community over on Reddit, as well as the mod retro community. Both people have just been super helpful to each other. Asking and answering questions. Just an overall, I don't know, positivity or camaraderie that is refreshing to see in a time where, especially the internet and online spaces are just overrun with such strife and division. So yeah, I think it's really neat. Let me just actually jump over to see if there was anything, maybe using my own sub here as a guide. Yeah, I mean, Big Me. Yeah, so this is something, going back to maybe kind of the very beginning of the stream here, just to wind things down a little bit. I think that intentional tech is a really good way to combat or perhaps even roll back some of the societal and cultural garbage that we kind of find ourselves all dealing with. And intentional tech is, for me, it's sort of the umbrella under which a number of these maybe pillars could fall. Dumb phones, digital minimalism, data privacy and data sovereignty. We didn't really talk about that much on this stream, but it's something that I am going to start covering on the channel. Kids tech, this is something where a lot of my peers now, millennials, we've got kids of our own, and we're either bummed out or concerned that the environment our kids are going to be growing up in is such a far cry from what we had. And so there's a number of different companies that I'm going to start covering on the channel about good kids tech, as opposed to just handing them a tablet or giving them an AI companion. Some ways that they can be integrate tech but still maintain their independence and, more importantly, their curiosity and their discovery nature for life. So those under the intentional tech, indie tech, obviously retro tech, retro gaming, part of them there. In fact, let's go. Maybe we can do this and let's see. Oh, Eric, you did the Where's Waldo. Oh, well, we need to go and pull that up now. Let's see the interactions that we had here. Okay, so let's see, reddit.com/r/side phone. Or what was the one post someone did? The Sidephone. Let's go to new. Okay, let's go to. Yeah, I thought this one was pretty funny. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, 28 upvotes. If you can't find it, just look inside your heart. We are all side phone. I love that. This was so fun. Surprise was great. Took me a minute. Man, now obviously I thought, where is it? Eric, where is it? Okay, I'm gonna have to come back to this. because I did want to do. Oh yes, this is what crackberry.com CB26. So Kevin did a really good summary of. Yeah. So right here, he did. And again, I'm a contributor on Crackberry. Managing editor currently. Things are in a little bit of a little bit of a limbo because clicks with the announcement of Power Keys and Communicator blew up, and so Kevin's been pulled away from Crackberry in a way I don't think he was necessarily expecting. But this is a really good, I think, synopsis of some, not exclusively, of what I would call the intentional tech. Pillars. You've got purpose-built devices, QWERTY. You've got intentional apps and tools. So things that basically help you focus, help you be more productive, as opposed to trying to get you hooked to your screen. Digital soul, privacy first, data sovereignty, exactly. Analog-ish and off-screen gear. Yep, all of this kind of so tech for parents, kid revival, gadget. Yeah, exactly. So these are all kinds of things that I feel are great. Oh man, see that whole time I'm talking. See, I'm so bad at OBS. The whole time I'm talking to you guys, I'm not even showing you what I'm looking at here. Right here, this is what I was just reading off of. I just feel like this intentional tech approach is a really good way to roll back and undo some of the harms that have been done from the last maybe 2.5 decades of tech going a little bit off the rails. And again, I don't want to call it a turning back the clock. It's more of like the pendulum swing. I think that the pendulum swung a little bit too far, maybe a lot too far, depending on the mood I'm in when you ask me about it. And adopting an intentional tech mindset or incorporating intentional tech into your life isn't so much of a turning back the clock as it is a, course correction, righting the ship, getting things back on track. That's the way, at least personally, I look at things, and hopefully that makes some sense to you guys. Yeah, I think that's it for me today, guys. I really appreciate all of you for being here. Again, a special thanks to Chance and LB56 for the super chats. That is huge. The intentional and retro tech meetup gathering, whatever. It's probably going to be a lot self-funded, and so those dollars mean a lot more than you might realize. I've thought about maybe trying to do some kind of returning retro merch to also like raise some money to host an event, or to maybe even to do some giveaways with devices and stuff like that. Not quite sure yet, because again, I am busy, and I don't know, as Henry can tell, when I'm sending him a shirt. He made a very generous donation to the channel, and I'm going to send him a shirt, and he'll be able to tell me it's handmade. It's just, I just used the the transfer paper, the iron-on stuff. That's really what I can do at this point. So it's not professionally made shirts or anything like that. But I have thought, hey, for the real retroverts out there, maybe it would be kind of cool for people to have some merch that they could join in the intentional tech movement a little bit more hands-on. So I don't know, we'll see on that. If you guys have any ideas on merch, like returning retro merch that you would like to see, again, reach out to me and let me know, because if you can't tell yet, I am winging this whole thing. I don't know what I'm doing. I am basically living off of my inappropriate levels of enthusiasm and a hope and a prayer, and the support of a wonderful community and Mrs. Retro and my family. They're very supportive as well. So that's it for me tonight, guys. Thank you all so much for being here. And as I say in every one of my videos, we will see you in the next one.